Let's talk about Minnesota now. I'm not going to play the videos. You've all seen them. It's the most viewed video on Twitter X. Why can't you guys do that to my show? This kid named Nick Shirley went in to fight. He's a 23-year-old Mormon kid from Utah. He decided, he's got a YouTube channel. He decided he was going to go up and follow up on some of this alleged daycare fraud in Minneapolis. Now, there's videos all over the internet. And what he did was he called the daycares. People are acting like he showed up with a camera and just said, let me see the kids. And that's not what happened. He called the daycares and said, hey, I want to sign my son up for daycare here. What do I got to do? And they were either wishy-washy or they blew him off. So he went to a couple of them afterwards, and they weren't open during business hours. One of the places was called the Learning Center, had misspelled the word learning on the sign. Now, these have popped up all over the country, in Ohio and Washington State, Kansas City. There even appears to be one right here in good old Omaha, Nebraska. At least one. At least one. We're looking into it. And what's happening here is these daycares will get grants from the state government. The state government funds daycare programs for people that are, making maybe a little bit less than the household median income, so that they can send their kids to daycare and not have to worry about somebody to go. It's good in principle. I don't have a problem with it. It's the practice where we run into issues. Because what happened was a bunch of people, many of whom were in the Somali community, decided that they were going to start these daycares up, not have any children at them, and just get millions of dollars a year in taxpayer funding. Now, what happened with that money? Well, there was a couple different things that happened with that money after they received it. A lot of them bought fancy items, cars, clothing, houses. I saw one guy on there with, he was one of the daycare owners. This kid can't be older than 25 years old. He's got on a pair of glasses that are $2,500. $2,500 glasses that he got from alleged welfare fraud. So taxpayer fraud, whatever you want to call it. It's pretty much the same thing at this point. When I was 20, I had a job, a customer service job, and there was a lady. She regularly came in. It was an elderly lady, and she would come in with her husband. And her husband he had those real cheap glasses that you get, just at like an America's Best or some type of eyewear store like that. But they were broken in multiple places, and they couldn't afford to get new ones. So this guy would tape them back together with Scotch tape. The fact that there's anyone, let alone an elderly person in this country, that has to tape their glasses back together with Scotch tape because they can't afford to buy a new $60 pair. Meanwhile, some piece of shit from another country that came here to rip us off with the sole purpose of ripping us off is a multimillionaire off the taxpayer's tit allegedly enrages me to no end. That infuriates me. So, one of these places comes out once the speculation starts, people saying, yo, maybe there's some smoke to this fire. What's going on here? They come out and they decide to be preemptive about it. They say, somebody actually broke in last night and burglarized us. And you're, oh my God, they burglarized the daycare. What did they steal? Do you have like iPads laying around the kids played with? Maybe some money, checkbook, something like, oh, no. They stole the documents and roster of the kids at the daycare. That's what they stole. They didn't steal computers. They didn't steal electronics. They didn't steal money. They broke in. If you listen to this daycare, they broke in, cut a hole in the drywall where these documents were evidently stored that had the list of the children that were there, that were attending it, and stole that in the middle of the night. We have no CCTV footage of it. The Minneapolis police said they investigated and found no leads, but that's what this burglar did. This is the political version of my dog ate my homework. Literally. The political version of my dog ate my homework. And that's what pisses me off. First off, who puts documents behind drywall? I've known like one person that's hid anything behind drywall in my life, and the guy was a drug dealer. Who hides shit behind drywall? We have, like, for documents like that, I mean, we've got, like, documents that if somebody got a hold of them, they could steal from us or steal identity. We have that in a safe. But everything else is just in a file cabinet. Maybe I could see they get a little $200 safe from Menards and stick it under the desk. Who cuts out a piece of drywall to stick documents in it? Non-financial documents. That makes no sense. And if you go and you look at the pictures of this drywall, they claim that the person tunneled through the wall and cut it. The cuts were made from the other side of the drywall. It looked to me like it was an inside job. Maybe I'm wrong. But who stores documents in drywall? Now, this has become like a left-right issue. It's not. This is the 80-20 thing. It's like I said, in the last week, Donald Trump has got the Trump derangement syndrome, has gotten the liberals to defend Christians being genocided in Nigeria, a narco-trafficking communist dictator, and tax fraud. Great hills to die on, guys. They call MAGA a cult. Dude, MAGA was roasting Trump. A lot of MAGA is still mad about what he did in Venezuela, which is kind of a popular thing to do. They're the cult. If you find yourself defending someone committing fraud, then you're the cult. Look at this Facebook post. I thought this was satire. I had to go look at the guy's page to make sure it wasn't. Everyone's jumping on the fraud. But as anyone, at least here in Minnesota, asked, how is the Somali community going to react to having all this money potentially cut off? All that money, though these illicit companies in childcare, home health care, meal provision, etc., was being spread across many, many individuals and families in that community. Buoyed for years by this easy money, how are they going to adjust suddenly without it? Especially now that their community reputation is weighed down from the scandal. Who cares? All I hear about from at least their community leaders like Ilhan Omar is that they're here to represent Somalian interests in America. Maybe they can go back to the place they love so much. It says many will be tempted to say, good, let them struggle from the years they've lived off of stolen money. I am one of those many. And I'm not just tempted, I'm diving straight into the pool. But struggle spreads out to affect others. This could be a real problem for the Twin Cities and something the next governor should consider, since I don't see Walz surviving this. Well, he's got one thing right. Brandon Furdig on Facebook wrote that. Brandon, here's what I think we should put to the test here, Brandon. You should let me steal your credit card and don't cancel it. I'm going to steal your credit card and I'm going to go to Applebee's. And then I'm going to tip the waitress $1,000. And when you file a dispute and you try to have me arrested, I'm going to go, think of the waitress. Think of the waitress. I gave that waitress enough money to go home to see her parents in Texas. And you stole it from her. Yes, it was made illicitly. But I was spreading the funds out to someone who had nothing to do with it. Look at the economic carnage you've caused by this, Brandon. Fucking idiots. We jumped in record time. The cognitive dissonance jumped from fraud isn't being committed to fraud is good. They're literally arguing that fraud is good. When we talk about the current state of the left, here it is. Here it is. This is they've gotten their marching orders. And what they're really doing, you useful idiots that can't figure this out, what the handlers on the radical left are doing when they get you to say absurd things like fraud is good. Like tax fraud is a good thing. They don't believe this. The text from Ruben Gallegos about how he thinks transgenderism is insanity, I'm paraphrasing, that's more or less what he said, are proof that the elites in your party do not care. They do not agree with you about these things. When they get you to say these things, they're not getting you to say them because they agree with that, because they reciprocate that viewpoint. They're getting you to say that because they want to see how far they can lead you. How insane of a viewpoint can we get them to defend if we tell them to? If the other side's against it, they'll support it. They did the same thing with transing your kids. Nobody believed in that shit 10 years ago. 99, dude, the furthest left people I knew were like, no, dude, you change your 6-year-old's gender, you belong in prison. It's child abuse. Now it's a mainstream talking point. They just take issues that are more and more absurd, something that every society throughout history has considered to be a punishable offense, fraud, theft, whatever you want to call it. You're now defending that. They're pushing you toward anarchy. They're trying to see if you will run through that brick wall for them. That's what this is. And guess what? They're doing it in England already. When the hordes come over here from these Islamic countries and the rape gangs start over here like you're seeing in the UK and the rest of Europe, you bet your fucking ass these people are going to get you to defend the rape gangs. Well, rape is culturally subjective there. I think it's a little nuanced. You know, it's wrong of you to just say rape is bad as a general statement. That'll be the left in 20 years. Mark my words, 20 years, that'll be the left. If we don't do something about the mass migration to this country from Islamic nations, that will be the left. They will be arguing that rape isn't always bad. You will see think pieces from New York Times, or maybe they'll all be out of business by then, but some bullshit mainstream media online sources will have mark my words, they will have think pieces out about how rape isn't always heinous. I guarantee you that will happen. They got you to defend chopping little kids' genitals up. They got you to defend fraud. They're getting you to defend genociding Christians now. There's nothing that you people will not parrot if they feed it to you. Nothing at all. And now you're getting a lot of people coming out. Theo Von, the comedian, kind of led the charge on this, going, yo, if this is what our taxes are going to, why are we paying taxes? What's the point of this? I mean, think about this. If you were paying a charity, monthly donations, and you found out that a bunch of that money wasn't going where it was supposed to, or somebody was embezzling, and they had no plan to stop, would you keep donating to that charity? Even if you love the cause, you'd be like, hey, I'm stopping until that guy's fired. Until something's done to stop the embezzlement, so I know my money's going where it's supposed to go. You know, my internet, we just changed our internet provider. I'll give you a personal example. Here at my house, and we got a faster speed for a lower price. I'm not going to name companies because I don't want to get sued or anything. But as fast as my internet is right now, I know for a fucking fact that I was getting maybe half the speed that I was actually paying for, an exorbitant amount of money, by the way, with the old company. If you're local, you probably know which companies I'm talking about, but I'll let you use your imagination. Had I found that out when I was with that company, because I didn't know what a gig was, right? I didn't know what the speed actually felt like. I'd had that company for years. And then I got 2 gigs and I was like, oh, okay. But had I had that company, I would have called them up. And then when I found out that I wasn't actually getting a gig, gone, hey, I'm not paying you until I know that I'm actually getting what I'm paying for. We're not paying for fraud. So I'm not going to tell people not to pay their taxes. But here's my prediction. I think you're going to see a lot of states, both red and blue, and potentially Uncle Sam at the federal government have a significant budget shortfall at the end of next year. Not because they were stupid with their money, some of them were, but because people are going to go, fuck you. Why should I pay you? There's fraud going on right under your nose. You were made aware of it. You did nothing. Whether you were complicit in that or you just didn't want to be called a racist, that's between you, God, and the law. But why should I pay my taxes if I know you're just going to let it become fraud or be used for fraud? Because that's what's happening. When you look at where this money's going, it leaves the country. Some people think it went to al-Shabaab terrorist groups. I'm sure some of it did. But it comes back into the country. And a lot of it comes back. This is called layering. It's layering. That's one of the stages of money laundering is layering, right? It's where they make it different. Usually that involves the money leaving the country, coming back into it, leaving it somewhere else, and coming back into it a number of times to make it difficult for law enforcement and financial institutions to track where the money's actually coming from originally. So this money left the country a bunch of times, then came back to these daycares. And if you look, these daycares donated millions of dollars exclusively in the state of Minnesota to Democrats. So this money is getting laundered from the taxpayers to Democratic campaigns. If you are a taxpayer in Minnesota, and probably a lot of other states, your money, your taxpayer money, when they jack up your taxes every year, which Tim Walz did, raised $9 billion in new taxes up there, that money is literally going to fund political campaigns. I don't want my money or my tax dollars funding either side, Republican or Democrat. I only want my tax dollars to fund Dan Osborne. I want to help make Dan Osborne a multimillionaire. That's what I want my taxes to do. Nothing else. Only dark money Dan Osborne. But then we find out that the voting, Scott Pressler drops this, the voting in Minnesota is crooked as all hell too. In 2008, more than 500,000 voters, which is nearly 20% of all the voters in Minnesota, registered on Election Day. Al Franken, the former Democrat senator up there, was only elected by a mere 312 votes. It gets better, though. Minnesota has this fun little law where you can, if you are a migrant, you can look this up. I'm dead serious. If you are a migrant in Minnesota, in order to, not disenfranchise other migrants, they want to make it easier for people to vote because it's all about democracy, right? We hear all about democracy. Democracy is so sacred. We got to do everything except make sure nobody's cheating to protect it. And that's how you protect something that's sacred, is you desecrate it with cheating, right? So in Minnesota, one person can vouch for 8 migrants at the polling place as same-day residency. Same-day registration. They don't have to have proof of residency or voter ID. You can walk in and cast your vote and then vote for 8 other people, and they don't have to prove that they even live there. In 2024, you had 296,000 people register on the same day. Guess what? If you work at a residential facility, an old folks home, something for poor people, disabled people, there is no limit to the amount of residents you can vouch for. You can go in and say, hey, I'm a manager at this elderly, and we all know that the care facilities are legitimate. They would never sign 30 of them up at the same address at a warehouse or somebody's condo, right? Oh, no, they did that. You can go there and say, hey, all 500 patients at this residential facility that I run out of my 1-bedroom condo are voting for the Democrats. Nothing in this state is legitimate. You had another one got convicted. We talked about this in the show. Got convicted of welfare fraud by a jury of his peers. The judge, who before she was a judge appointed by Tim Walz, was a credit card payment processor for a bank who just happened to have a legal degree, comes back and reverses the decision. The state is corrupt beyond repair. We're at a point where you have to if you're Donald Trump, you have to consider invoking the Insurrection Act and saying Tampon Tim's going to prison. We're sending the National Guard in. He's going to prison. The whole state is a rogue state. It's corrupt as all hell. It's possibly funding terrorism. Their elections haven't been legitimate for at least 16 years. They have to start over. Everyone goes to prison. Everyone gets arrested. We're going to oversee the elections like we are in Venezuela. That may be the only way. And, when I hear about Melissa Hortman, that state senator that got shot up there, at first we just thought it was some nut job. But this woman was a Democrat, albeit a moderate one, who killed a bill that would have expanded Medicare and Medicaid for migrants. Access to it. And if you go and you watch her interview after she cast the vote, this woman's in tears. And it's like, okay, I get being like emotional or whatever that you killed this, but like, you went against your colleagues, but she was in tears. And if you go back and watch the video, the sound of her voice is just off. Like she knew something was up. And it's kind of like, okay, what's going on here? And then a day later, she gets shot by a masked man, armed to the teeth, that like fell off the face of the earth. And by the way, had been appointed to a position on the state government by none other than Coach Sandusky, Tim Walz himself, and wrote in his manifesto that Tim Walz told him to kill her. Now that may have been the ramblings of a schizo, but now I'm not so sure. This guy's running the state like the mob up there. So I don't know what's going on with him. The worst part about this fraud thing is that the people committing it that are from Somalia, the refugees up there, they're refugees. They're not just migrants. They came from a country that was downtrodden and war-torn. And the United States reached out their hand and said, we'll help you out. We'll help you out. And even though after 10 years, 70 to 80% of you are still living on welfare, we're going to help you out because we want to get you out of this bad situation you're in. Out of the goodness of our hearts, truly. And I'm not saying all Somalis are fraudsters, but the ones that did commit the fraud, they came here as refugees and ripped us off. I mean, could you imagine if your friend lost his job, got kicked out of his apartment, and you're like, hey, man, you want to sleep on my couch for a couple nights till you get back, a couple weeks till you get back on your feet? Go ahead. And then that guy stole your wife's necklace or your checkbook and started writing himself fraudulent checks? How betrayed you would feel. That's the worst part about this, is the lack of humanity involved to take advantage of a country that brought you out of a horrible situation and stood nothing to gain from it. It cost us money. It was a net negative economically. Socially, our culture declined. We did it because we felt it was the right thing to do, the Christian thing to do, and you still ripped us off. That's the worst part about this, and that should play a serious role in how we write our legislation when it comes to how many refugees we take every year and where they come from.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, be sure to click the link in the description to get the full episode on Rumble. If you prefer to listen along, you could actually get us on Spotify, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. You can also go to www.outlawstreamers.com to learn more about not just my show, but tons of other great shows and all the exciting projects they have coming up. Follow my socials at Caleb Isn't Funny on Twitter and Instagram, at Caleb Salvatore Comedy on the Chinese spy app that is TikTok, and be sure to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thanks, and we'll see you every Saturday for brand new episodes of That's Based. Peace.